Patricia, I was very intrigued by your title, The Queen of Onboarding. So I'm very excited
Ooh,
about what we're gonna discuss today because
yes.
I know that you have a lot of expertise in HR and
Hmm.
very broadly. And I think
Yes.
it's going to be beneficial for someone to hear what are some of the things that an expert in HR has to say about maybe what they can do in order to make their career climb or career journey
Hmm.
more successful by knowing a few extra things. So,
Yes,
welcome
absolutely.
again.
Thank you.
What is the thing that attracted you in HR?
Oh, I think a lot of HR professionals can relate to this. I fell into HR, I guess, like by accident because the first job that I got out of college was a recruiting gig. And then I didn't know what HR meant by then. And then I was just kind of like, all right, let me figure this out. What is it exactly that people are doing in HR? Because I thought HR is so boring. It's a lot of like administrative work. It's very heavily on paperwork, compliance, and laws and all of that. But I didn't know that there's this like people aspect of HR that kind of draws me into the field more. And then as I kind of built my career tackling different areas in HR, I think the essence of it, it's like people management because people are very unique. So I think just kind of uncovering that connection with the business side of things is definitely my favorite.
Hmm. And when you
Yeah.
say people management,
Mhm.
like from an HR perspective, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So think about it this way. Comparing when we were in school and education, like we have kind of like a track, right? Like you start with pre-K or elementary, and then you have like designated, I guess, journey to um, junior high, high school, and then college. But then like as soon as you hit the career world, there's no like direct pathway for you. So I think the people management comes into play when you first kind of land your first job and then thinking about it as like a journey for you. Like, okay, professionally, how do I transition from being a learner and then now I become a professional? So that's when you encounter like a lot of different skills and different talents that you have. Not only just like the things that you learn at school, but also like the soft skills. So when it comes to the business aspect of things, it's like, okay, how do we make sure that somebody that comes in that we hired as a talent, they can thrive in just, whether it's doing their job, but at the same time, like grow professionally. So I think that's kind of like the unique aspect of like, there's so many areas in HR that people think that, it's like very operational, but the core of it, it's like, how do we unlock your biggest potential in your career? So that can be like in so many different facets.
So, what are some things that you would say are important to unlock that potential to set you
Oh,
on the wonderful trajectories? I know that there are a lot, I would assume now, but if you
yes.
were to select what are the most important things, what?
Yeah, I think, are you referring to like the traits or um, kind of like, is it anything specific that you're asking?
It's more about what are you teaching them. So if someone gets
Mm,
to like they go to their first job or maybe first role
yes.
in that like first time when they have that specific role, like
Yeah.
how are you playing that people management role to support them to thrive?
Hmm. Absolutely. I think one of the biggest traits that I always share with people is like be a sponge, right? It sounds so silly because like what does that mean? Sponge is just like absorbing things, right? You're gonna be exposed to a lot of different things. You're gonna meet with a lot of variety of people. So at your first kind of career or if you transition to a new field, I think the best that you can do during your first 3 months, which is your kind of like onboarding time, is to learn, to connect with as many people as possible, and to ask questions. So to kind of share a little bit of my story, which is kind of tied into onboarding now. I have experience with like great onboarding and really bad onboarding. And that makes a huge impact in how I kind of like grow in that company. So yeah, having that sponge mentality, it will help to kind of set the course of your career in that organization.
Mm-hmm. So that
Yeah.
onboarding period, some people say
Yes.
that that's the period that makes it or breaks it. Do you
Yes.
agree?
I agree. It's kind of like your honeymoon, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you are new, so everything is exciting and everything is fun. But then a lot of maybe organizations don't see the onboarding as like a valuable time when you hire somebody. And I think they miss the mark if they don't get that. Because, yeah, onboarding is not just setting up all the paperwork, all the legal stuff, which a lot of companies tend to do, but it's much more than that. It's pretty much like, think about it like you're welcoming someone in your house. Like you want to make it, you make the person like feel welcome. You want to make sure that they have everything that they need and then have like a good experience because that will actually impact their career throughout their time there.
You were named or called the
Yes.
Queen of Onboarding. What,
I know.
how was it like? How did they come up with giving you that title?
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that is super funny. When I heard that, I was just like laughing because I love onboarding so much and I'm really obsessed by it. I think it stemmed from my own experience when again, like at the first job, you didn't expect that much, right? You were like, I'm just so happy that I can land this job. And then I come in and then, yeah, there's no good impression. You know, when you like come into an organization, you're expecting like, oh, they will, I don't know, do some sort of presentation, equipping you with a lot of different things. And then I was like, oh, I was just kind of sat in there filling out paperwork like that, like that was really bad. And I ended up staying for a couple of years, but I knew like that's not the place for me because there's just no connection and sense of belonging. But I then moved to another company that they did like extra mile onboarding that the CEO even came on my first day and shake my hand and he knew me by name. And I thought, wow, like that made me so like seen and known.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just kind of made a lasting impact. And yeah, they did like a week of onboarding with like thoughtful learning, thoughtful team activities, like engaging in both like the personal side of things and then the professional side of things. And since then, I'm like, okay, wherever I go next, I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna make the onboarding experience like fabulous. Hence, I was named that because at that time I jumped to a company that they had a um, trouble or challenge with onboarding. And then when I came in, I was utterly obsessed, and they were like, "Patty, you are truly the queen of onboarding. Like no one gets as excited as you talking about your first day at work." So yeah, that's kind of where it came from.
Mm-hmm. So just
Yeah.
seeing that great example and seeing what is possible. No, because when you have a bad experience
Yes.
in onboarding or anytime you're starting somewhere, you're
Yes.
thinking or you're very tempted to think that this is just how it works. But then seeing that
Yes.
there is something so drastically different and possible, and I would
Correct.
just assume the difference that it made in you working there, like as you said,
Yeah.
that you felt seen. And
Hmm.
I believe we show up in such a different capacity when we feel
Yes.
that we are seen, that we matter enough for the CEO to remember our name,
Hmm.
to make that effort.
Yes.
I'm sure you've seen a lot of examples of good
Hmm.
onboarding, bad onboarding. What I'm
Hmm.
curious is to go now to see it from the perspective of the new hire, the new
Okay.
person that is starting.
Hmm.
And they have the company that they are joining has no onboarding process, or at best, it's a nice binder with a lot of documentation in it.
Hmm.
What can they do to ensure that even though there's
Hmm.
no good onboarding, nice experience, that they
Hmm.
can still set themselves up for success in those first 90 days?
Oh, I love this question. So I like that this means that you can be proactive, right? You don't need to wait for another person to make it happen for you because ultimately you are like, you take charge of your career. So something that I will suggest, honestly, the first thing is invest in the people. So your first 90 days are super crucial because you get to know everybody. You learn so many different names and things and sometimes like acronyms. If you work for a company that have like inside names and all that, that's also challenging. But I would say find five people that you truly want to like get to know them. One is obviously your manager. Other ones you can choose between like peers. So let's say, for example, if you're in HR, you can connect with accounting. Or let's say if you're in operations, connect with someone from sales. Like find those people that kind of work alongside you and build your relationship from there. Because like these are the people that can be kind of your mini village as you grow in your career and in this company. So that matters the most. Send like a chat with them, like, hey, I just joined this company. I noticed that you're in operations, or like we started around the same week. Would you be open to like grab a lunch together? I think just like starting with that intention, like it shows that you're invested in this company and you also can get insights from the people that already work there, right? And then number two, if this is also another interesting aspect, if you notice that your manager does not have some sort of like initiation of like, hey, this is what your first week should look like, 30 days, 60 days, you can actually set up a meeting with your manager and just like, hey, I would love to set up a one-on-one meeting with you. I, came in here because I was excited about ABC. Do you have some sort of like performance plans in this company, or how does things work in this company? And just kind of go from there. Like a lot of listening is definitely a really great trait to show because it shows that, you're like eager to learn and eager to, grow in this company and just kind of go from there. So yeah, people, and then also initiate that conversation with your manager.
Yeah. Yeah. So establishing your internal network to see who the players are,
Yes. Yep.
and then making sure that
Truly.
your role is clearly defined in those conversations that
Yes.
you mentioned with your manager. Like, what is the performance here? Like, what am I going to
Yeah.
be measured on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally. Hmm.
One of the questions that I get a lot when I work with people, because I work with people in the first 90 days of starting a new role, is
Okay.
how to ask questions safely.
Oh.
What is the like? Do you believe there is a safe way to ask questions, or what are your thoughts in asking questions?
Oh, I guess it depends on what kind of questions, like, right? Like, what type of questions that your clients typically
Clarifications, like
ask?
learning the acronyms, maybe
Hmm.
questions that seems like obviously everybody knows them, but they find
Hmm.
themselves not knowing. Maybe they are
Yeah.
doubting. They are
Yeah.
afraid that they will look like
Oh, they
not
don't know anything.
knowledgeable. Yes.
Yes. Oh, I can relate on this at so many levels. Um, I am an extrovert, so asking questions are like come naturally for me. But for people who are introverted, that's also another challenge, right? But then I noticed that um, when I hold back in asking, like that's not helping me to understand better. So it wasn't until my boss noticed that throughout my first career, and then she was like, Patty, I just want to call you out because there's no such thing as stupid question. There's no such thing as like because you don't know anything, hence you're not capable. Like, no, we're all long life learners. So that's like I guess like principle that I'm holding on to. Like wherever you step in the room, like if you don't know anything, ask questions. And I feel like you can also use your judgment a little bit of like who are the people that you're asking questions to, and then just to kind of word it in a way that out of like curiosity, but also in also a respectful way. Because obviously, there are instances that people just want to throw questions and not being thoughtful. So yeah, maybe like something that is helpful is like maybe you can write those questions before you meet with the person, like two, three. That way, like you don't forget. Or if you're not sure if this, like, oh my goodness, this is too scary of a question, maybe you run it with somebody that you know. Maybe it's your mentor or your friend, and just ask them like, hey, these are the questions that are I feel like a little bit sensitive. Like, what do you think if I deliver it this way? So that way you feel more confident when that opportunity comes.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, but
Yep.
nevertheless, like ask those questions.
Yes.
What if you have a manager that it's not as open as your manager, which I think it was amazing that she encouraged you and told you that there is no such thing as bad question, but maybe we're making some assumptions that, ooh, I'm
Yes.
afraid. How
Yeah.
what can be something that can still help them find that strength to
Hmm.
ask the questions or the obvious questions?
Yeah, for sure. I have worked with a manager that is not as proactive, I guess I would say, which my personality, I felt like, oh, I'm probably doing something wrong. And I kind of like question
Mm-hmm.
yourself. Um, I think the best way is to, again, like just being open in that conversation when you ask them. It's like, hey, is it okay if we sit for 30 minutes? Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe I've been here for 30 days or 60 days, and I just want to kind of set the tone of our working relationship. Like, how am I doing? Is there anything that I can do to improve? So start with something like that is neutral, and then
Mm-hmm.
kind of read what your manager says. And then it's okay to ask for expectations too. Maybe like you're being honest, because at that time I was there for like 2 years and I have not gotten any raise or promotion. And I just felt like, oh, I probably don't do a great job. But then, like, how would you know if you don't ask your manager, right? So I did. I initiated that conversation. And then based on his response, it's just like, that's now how the company works. So I just felt like it's a confirmation for me to find another company that truly invests in my growth. So I think, yeah, the best way is to have that conversation, start very like neutral ground, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah. And I think you
Yeah.
you said something so important that when you finally found the strength to go and ask that question, sometimes you get the answer that this is not the company for you or that they're not
Yes.
that. And then like it is hard, but you would rather find it out at that moment than staying and
Hmm.
investing even a long time hoping that something different will happen to you where that is not the place for you to grow. Like that's the
Correct.
I think it's so
Yeah,
important. And it's hard. It's a hard
it
reality because
is.
that's not what we want to hear. But sometimes,
Hmm.
yeah, asking those questions can expedite a little bit knowing
Yeah.
what are our next steps or if we're okay, if we want to remain there, but at least knowing what the
Hmm.
possibilities are.
Exactly. Because I also have seen a lot of my friends that chose, you know what, I don't want to shake the boat. I just want to be safe and like cruise. But then there's this resentment that is built in, right, in them. And then they just feel like, I'm not happy, I'm not satisfied. And even though you keep that to yourself, it will come out in your work. Like, I guarantee you, I've seen this a lot. People that are just not satisfied with their jobs, it affects their relationship, it affects family, because like that's the thing, like if you feel like something is not yeah, something is not right, or like you're not satisfied about something, like go initiate that conversation, because like you do yourself a favor when you do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
In your experience, Patty,
Hmm.
what is an example of someone who managed their first 90 days very successfully, that they were set, they put themselves in a very good place
Hmm.
by managing the first 90 days
Hmm.
optimally.
Yes. Oh, I love this, because I have seen, there's this one person that comes to mind. He is just such an energetic person in general, like very, high energy, very like personable and all of that. So something that I noticed changed. We're actually peers, so we're at the same level. So I actually hired him and then onboarded him to the company. And then I gave him all the tools, resources, and I was like, hey, do you have any questions? The first question that he asked me is like, who are the 5 people in the company that I should introduce myself to? And I was like, oh, I wish I am that person. I am that newbie that asked that question. And I thought, you know what? I can see this person is going to be like successful in a short amount of time just because of the intentionality that he invests. And like, turns out 3 months later, post the 90 days onboarding, I asked him like, hey, how are things going? And he's like, great. I have built the connections with the 5 people that I mentioned. They refer me to another people. And you know what? Like, he actually got promoted 9 months in, which I am not surprised in because, it shows like when you have that, not that like it's a guarantee when you do that. Obviously, that's
Mm-hmm.
not the case,
Mm-hmm.
but it shows that when you, again, like successfully invest in this relationships, like that sets you up for success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there is so much, as you mentioned earlier, that
Hmm.
meeting with those people also gives you some information that it would be hard to find it on a piece of onboarding paper, or
Yeah.
just hear it somewhere and hope that that information is gonna come to you. Uh,
Yeah.
you find out so much, and
Hmm.
it can help you place yourself. And as you said, there is no guarantee, but definitely you increase the chances for
Hmm.
that to happen, to put you on the trajectory. How about the bad,
Yeah.
like someone that didn't manage it well and it ended up like sadly?
Yes. Oh, this is a sad story because I kind of noticed that during the hiring process. And this is a person that is like very seasoned, but then with like very structured environment. So came from, like a big corporate company that has like A, B, C. And then this person jump into a startup company, which is a completely different industry, right? In startup, there's no such thing as like structure. Like it's very, like I call it scrappy compared to a traditional corporate. And we shared that during the interview process. And he felt like, you know what? I'm going to make a call. I'm just going to jump in. And I was like, I want to warn you, it's a very different environment and you need to have an open mind when you ask questions and there's no answer, because that's just the reality of working in a startup company. And we did the onboarding and all of that. And then I noticed that on the very first few days, he was asking for some resources in his department. And turns out, as I said, the resources that he was looking for, it's not there yet. So that was kind of putting him off a little bit. And instead of being someone that is like proactive of like, hey, is there something that I can do to build this, or like where can I like help with this area? There's just, again, disappointments and resentments. And then turns out it's like it blew up to at another level that he's just not comfortable with technology. He wanted to do it his way. And he actually left the company in like less than 30 days. And unfortunately, we kind of knew that, hey, you could have taken a different approach and you could have asked us like, hey, I'm not comfortable with this. Is there someone that can help me out? Like we would have given that help to him, but then he did not ask and he didn't like, he chose the other route. So yeah, that's kind of like a very different experience for those 2 people.
Yeah. And how it's
Yeah.
important that even though the things don't stay in the same way that we're accustomed to, that if we
Mm-hmm.
really want to make it work, we need to have that open mind that you said,
Yes.
but also try to make it. If it's not there, build it. Fine.
Yes.
Don't feel like you need to just accept the situation. See if it's possible that
Yes.
you can make it.
100%. Yeah.
Patricia, what is one thing that it's important in the
Mm-hmm.
context of the first 90 days, first steps into a company onboarding in general, that we didn't talk yet?
Oh, let me think that we didn't talk yet. I think there's this statistic hence I'm the queen of onboarding because I know the statistic. Let me just read it. It's 69% of employees who have an exceptional onboarding experience are most likely to stick around in the company for 3 years. Like, just sit on that a little bit. Like, 69% that have amazing onboarding that can stay for 3 years. Like, if you are employer, if you're a company, then you want to invest in this onboarding experience because obviously hiring is expensive. It takes a lot of time and resources. And once you find that talent, you want to keep them, right? Because you don't want them to just leave the company and then start the process all over again. So I think it's very important for companies to understand that there is a huge value in making onboarding an experience and more than the paperwork aspects of it. And then vice versa, for an employee that 90 days of the first 90 days of your job, again, that can make or break you because like, if you think about it from this statistic, you're looking at the 3 years of your time in that company. So how do you make sure that you have a great experience, you find the resources that you need to perform your job, but also find those people that can come alongside you in this journey of building your next career. So, yeah.
Yeah. So what I hear, if it's there, the good
Hmm.
onboarding, celebrate it, embrace it, take advantage
Yes.
of it. And then again, if it's not there,
Hmm.
don't lose hope. It's still
Hmm.
possible for you to create it by yourself and
Yes.
take charge of that onboarding.
100%.
Wonderful. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for giving us such great insights. I think it's so important. And I see statistics that over 70% of the people are unhappy in their jobs. And I feel like approaching these important moments in someone's
Hmm.
career, the first few days can play
Hmm.
such an important role, and approaching it that with intentionality and with ownership can really
Yes.
make a difference. I know that you have your own HR consulting
Hmm.
business, and what are you offering, and where can people find out more about what you're doing?
Yeah, awesome. So what I'm offering is I help founders of early stage startups that don't have the HR capacity or knowledge to build a scalable HR function. So throughout my time, I have experience with a couple of startups when they are very early stage, meaning like 5, 10 employees, or even a handful, to scale from, let's say, 10 to 100 or like 100 to 1,000. So I help them to make sure that you build a strong people function in your team and then just go from there. So yeah, you can find more information on my website. It's epconsultingteam.com, and would love to chat further with you.
Wonderful. Yes, and I will add that information on show description as well. Patricia,
Perfect.
thank you so much for this time. Thank you again for taking the time to tell us the story from the other the other side, from the HR side, and to
Yes.
learn and to allow us to learn what are
Mhm.
the crucial things that we can do to really love our jobs and thrive in our jobs, and not let the honeymoon period being the end
Yes.
of the period where we absolutely loved
Mhm.
the jobs that we worked often so hard to get it.
Yeah, of course. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I hope this episode gave you some inspiration for reaching your goals. If you found it useful, please hit the subscribe button. This will help me bring you more inspirational stories to support your own journey to point B. Thank you.